Hi guys, welcome to Nijin Recapped. Today we are going to tell you about a superhero movie, titled Samaritan. Spoiler alert, now let's get going. The movie starts with a boy narrating the story of two superhuman twins. The twins' super strength made them hurt people accidentally and they were feared by everyone. One night, when the twins and their parents were fast asleep, people came and burnt down their house. The twins' parents died that night but the twins survived unharmed. That event changed the twins forever and one became Nemesis, a villain, and the other, named Samaritan, became a hero who saves people. Their choices turned them into fierce rivals. Nemesis created a hammer and poured his mutated blood on it, making it the only weapon to hurt either twin. Nemesis, with the hammer in hand, had a final showdown in a power plant. Their fight was initially equal until Samaritan busted out some kung fu moves which sent Nemesis flying and caused a massive explosion. The explosion caused a citywide blackout, as well as a huge fire which caused the power plant to burn down, trapping the twins inside. The story says that both twins died in the fire but the narrator boy believes Samaritan survived the ordeal. The movie changes back to the present day and we see the boy, whose name is Sam, watching a conspiracy theorist talking about the twins on his YouTube channel, Nijin Recapped. Sam's mom interrupts him to ask for some bus fare and then asks Sam to take out the trash as it smells. While Sam was disposing of the trash, a man from the next building comes out to also throw trash. The man, who looks a lot like John Rambo but older, took a broken fan out of the dumpster and then left. The next day, Sam was locked out of his apartment because of late rent. Sam sat outside doodling in his notebook, which he does to pass time. Just then, Rambo lookalike, whose name is Joe, was going back to his apartment and Sam started a conversation with him. Sam asked him why he is bringing a broken radio with him and he asked Sam why he is wearing a broken watch, which surprises Sam because of his sharp observation. When the man left, a boy named Jace came and convinced Sam to go help him steal some copper wires. Sam initially hesitated, but later decided to go to earn money to help with their rent. The boys scavenged some old copper wires and then later sold the loot at a gang's hideout which is headed by a guy named Cyrus. While the boys were selling the wires, Cyrus and his gang drove in. Cyrus is escorted by a lady into the building. Just then, Bully Trio, whose leader is Reza, a Lil Wayne lookalike, entered the buying area. Reza scolds Jace for making only $40 in his sale and asks Jace to be his distraction in a robbery he is organizing. Sam convinces Reza to let him join as a distraction as Sam desperately needs the money. When it was dark, Sam pretended to be hurt by putting hot sauce on his face and managed to distract the shop owner. Reza and his two friends then sneaked in from the back and stole some boxes. Later, Sam and Bully Trio sold the boxes to Cyrus's goon Farshad, who is also Reza's cousin. Farshad found out the packages were only potato chips and started scolding Reza, but Reza blamed Sam for not checking properly. Sam denies the accusation and Reza wrestles him, knocking Sam's notebook onto the floor. Cyrus walks into the scene and asks Reza if he was a liar. Reza denies it but Cyrus deduces that Reza is accusing Sam because Sam is the youngest. Cyrus asks Sam if that was the case but Sam did not reply. This makes Cyrus fond of Sam. When Cyrus was about to leave, he noticed Sam's notebook on the floor. Picking up the notebook, Cyrus asked Sam if Sam is a fan of Samaritan because Samaritan is the good guy. Cyrus also notes how Nemesis is like God to most of the gang members. Cyrus then gave Sam $100 for the courage he displayed, and another $100 for Sam's future services. Sam went home and met his mom arguing with the landlord about their late rent. Sam gave his mom some money to buy the rent. She later inquired about how Sam got the money. Sam lied to his mom but his mom berated him because she suspected him of earning the money illegally. The movie switches back to Cyrus and his men inspecting a crate of weapons which look like flashbangs. Cyrus's short goon asks when they will execute their unknown plan and Cyrus states that it will be tomorrow. The next day Sam got chased by the Bully Trio because Reza wanted to bully Sam into giving them the money that Cyrus gave Sam. While the Bully Trio were chasing Sam, Joe saw them pass by him on the bus that he was on. Sam went into an opening in a fence blocking an alley to run away. However, the Bully Trio jumped over the fence and knocked Sam down. Reza and his boys proceeded to beat Sam up. Suddenly Joe arrived at the scene and threw two of Reza's friends away. Reza was in disbelief at how strong Joe is and tried landing a punch on Joe's stomach which hurt Reza's hand. Joe scoffs and pushes Reza away, sending him sliding away. Joe helped Sam up and they started to walk away. Reza saw an opportunity and tried to stab Joe with a pocket knife, however, Joe turned around and caught the knife in his bare hands. Sam was very surprised as Joe's hand was unscathed. Sam rushed home and started spying on Joe through the apartment's window. When Joe went to his apartment and took off his shirt, Sam spotted scars on his back which looked like burn marks. Sam went into his room and wrote down Joe's name on a list of people who Sam suspects might be the Samaritan. During that night, Cyrus and his men traveled in a police van to a police impound. Cyrus used the mysterious grenade, which he called a blackout bomb, to kill the guard on duty. Cyrus and Sil broke into a vault and started looking around. Cyrus opens 2 cases and it is revealed the cases contain Samaritans and Nemesis's masks. He opened up the 3rd crate and inside was Nemesis's hammer. At the same time, Joe was fixing something in his room but could feel that something bad was going to happen. Sam went to the conspiracy theorist's bookshop. There he tried telling the conspiracy theorist about Joe, but the guy was not happy that he was disturbing his customers. Sam then gave him $10 which made him change his mind. Sam and the conspiracy theorist talk about Joe, which the conspiracy theorist still does not believe. He showed Sam a picture of Nemesis's hammer and told Sam it is locked up in a police impound. Sam told the conspiracy theorist about how Joe beat up Bully Trio and how Joe had a scar on his back. But that only creeped out the conspiracy theorist because Sam was spying on Joe. The next day when Joe went out of his apartment, Sam broke into the apartment and stole his notebook. Sam saw newspaper clippings on Samaritan's endeavors and that strongly solidifies his suspicion. When Joe came back to his apartment, he realized his notebook was missing and he went to Sam's apartment to get his notebook back. Sam's mom apologizes for Sam's behavior and Joe assured her it was okay. Joe and Sam later met outside and Sam asked Joe about being Samaritan, which Joe denied. Sam then asks about Joe's notebook and Joe says that he is a fan, like Sam. Sam kept asking too many questions and Joe was annoyed, so he crossed the street to get away from Sam. While Joe was crossing the street, a car ran into him, knocking him down. It is revealed Reza and Farshad, along with the boys from Bully Trio, tried to kill Joe because Joe beat up Reza. The gang sped away laughing and enjoying their victory. Sam stood surprised at Joe's lifeless body and did not know what to do. Just then, Joe suddenly woke up. Joe then started twisting his body back to normal, which further proves Sam's theory that Joe is the Samaritan. Joe calls out for water and Sam escorts him to his apartment. Joe went straight into the shower and started showering. Joe then later ate some ice cream while Sam showers him with questions. Joe told Sam that when his body is hurt, his body overheats, so he has to cool it down or his heart will explode, hence the shower and ice cream. Sam asked if that's what happened to Nemesis, which upsets Joe. Later that night, Cyrus and his men are seen sitting in a van. Cyrus held a blackout bomb in his hand and threw it at one of his goons. The man laughed hysterically and tossed the grenade outside, causing a blackout. Cyrus then came out of the van wearing Nemesis's mask and gave a big villain speech to the bystanders. The crowd started cheering while Cyrus's men went around passing masks to the crowd. The crowd, inspired by Cyrus, started looting everywhere. At the same time, Joe was having a nightmare about his fight with his twin brother. Joe woke up and was starting his day but noticed Sam following him. Joe hides and confronts Sam, then lets Sam tag along. Joe and Sam went to a pawn shop, and as Joe was about to enter, a man bumped into him and Joe apologized. Sam was disappointed with Joe, but Joe ripped off the shop's doorknob, which shows he was restraining himself. The two spent the day talking about Samaritan. Joe started to get fond of Sam and asked Sam if he could fix Sam's broken watch. Sam gave him the watch and went away. The next day, Joe was eating his breakfast and saw the news of Cyrus's rally. Joe was visibly angry and almost crushed his bowl of cereal. Joe then left his apartment to go to work and Sam came asking Joe to teach him how to fight. In the afternoon, Joe and Sam met on the rooftop. Joe asks Sam to show him his moves. Sam was upset that he always runs and asks Joe what would happen if he had no choice. Joe told Sam to sucker punch the bad guy and run. Sam suddenly sucker punched Joe in his stomach but hurt his hand in the process. The two then went to Joe's apartment to get some ice for Sam's hand. While in Joe's apartment, Sam asked about what actually happened between Joe and his twin. Joe started having flashbacks of the night when Samaritan and Nemesis had their final battle. Sam told Joe about the conspiracy theorist and his theory about the twins, which made Joe angry because the conspiracy theorist was wrong. Joe then chased Sam out. Sam left Joe's apartment and was walking around on the street upset. Cyrus's car drives up to Sam and Cyrus convinces Sam to join him. Cyrus teaches Sam to whistle when he sees cops, but Sam fails when a police car drives behind them. Cyrus gave the corrupt cop some money and told Sam he needs to learn how to whistle. Later, Cyrus's men arrived and drove into their base. Sam hid and sneaked in after them. Sam arrived at where the gang went and saw they had a guy bound on a chair. The prisoner, who we find out is a cop, threatens to report Cyrus' plan to destroy the city's power plant and throw the city into darkness. Cyrus pretends to let the man go but shoots him just as he passed where Sam was hiding. Sam was shocked by the scene and ran away. While going back to his house, Sam meets Bully Trio, bullying Jace. Reza told Sam he has to choose Cyrus's gang or Jace, but Sam, not having any of Reza's bullying, sucker punched Reza in his jaw. Sam then pushed away the remaining two guys and told Jace to run. Angry with Sam, the bully trio beat up Sam and pushed him in a shopping cart back to his apartment building. Joe spots them outside and Reza also spots Joe. The bully trio ran away scared. Joe brought Sam to the hospital where Sam's mom worked. Sam's mom was angry that Joe could not stop the attackers. At the same time, the bully trio went back to the gang's hideout and informed Farshad about Joe being alive. Cyrus was also there and asked Farshad to confirm it. Farshad confirms and shows Cyrus the car damaged by hitting Joe. Cyrus then asks his men to bring Joe to him. The next day, Joe feels he is followed, so he walks into an alley to hide from the pursuers. He passed by a little girl and walked on, but the men still followed him. Joe stopped and Farshad along with the gang members surrounded him. Farshad told Joe to follow him back to Cyrus, but Joe refused and a fight broke out. The gang members tried everything: punching, stabbing, and shooting, but none of their efforts worked as Joe was far skilled and bulletproof. Joe knocked almost all of them down and choked Farshad before throwing him against the wall. The last guy tried stabbing Joe again and Joe sent him flying out of the alley, crashing him against a car. The little girl earlier was amazed, but Joe told her it was an optical illusion. While Joe and the little girl were talking, Farshad got up and threw a blackout bomb toward Joe. Joe quickly grabs the girl and flips a car sideways to block the blast. The move by Joe was recorded by the bystanders on their phones. Later that day, Joe watched his video saving the girl on the news when Sam knocked on the door. Joe was carrying a bag like he was ready to travel when he answered the door. Sam told Joe about Cyrus's plan on bombing the power plant, insisting on Joe stopping them. Joe refuses and Sam is left upset that Joe is becoming like everyone else. Joe felt Sam's disappointment but could not do anything. Back at Cyrus's gang's hideout, Farshad enters distressed. Sil asks what happened and Farshad turns on the TV to show them the news about Samaritan saving a little girl, playing on Nesian Recapped. Sil starts getting anxious as Samaritan might come for them, but Cyrus picks up Nemesis's hammer and declares that he will stop Samaritan from thwarting their plans. The scene changes and we see Joe sitting at a bus station waiting for his bus to leave the city. Joe reached into his pocket for his ticket but felt Sam's watch. Joe had a change of heart and went back to see Sam. At Sam's apartment, he found the place ransacked. He then found Sam's mom, who told him that Sam was kidnapped by Cyrus. Joe was visibly angry, just like how Rambo looks when he got angry. Joe went to his company's warehouse and stole a truck with some drums. Joe used the truck to bust through Cyrus's henchmen who were guarding their hideout. Joe crashed the car through Cyrus's front door and the truck overturned. Joe then busted out through the truck's back door and proceeded to beat up some of Cyrus's henchmen. Joe called out for Sam while the gang members surrounded him. Cyrus came down to meet Joe while carrying Nemesis's hammer. Cyrus calls out Joe for being Samaritan and being a fake hero and starts fighting with him. Because Cyrus had Nemesis's hammer, he was able to overpower Joe. The gang members cheered on as Cyrus knocked around Joe and berated him for being the good guy. Just as Cyrus moved to give the finishing blow, Joe, who had enough of everyone's comments about him and his twin brother, caught the hammer on its head, and told Cyrus that Cyrus was wrong. It is revealed at that moment that Samaritan died in the fire during the twins' final showdown, and Joe is actually Samaritan's twin brother, Nemesis. Cyrus was in shock to learn that Nemesis is still alive and is nothing like the hero he admired. At the same time, the drums that Joe stole were shown strapped with a countdown clock revealing they were explosives. The timer ticks out and an explosion sends everyone flying except Joe, who is still doing a superhero pose. Cyrus ran away from Joe and found Sil dead, courtesy of Joe's explosives. Cyrus then picks up Sam and goes to hide. The gang members surround Joe and sprayed bullets at him, but Joe is bulletproof. Cyrus is shown locking up Sam to use as leverage on Joe while Joe beats up the gang members and knocks down a platform on top of himself and some of the gang members. Joe came out of the rubble and proceeded to beat the rest of the gang who were still there. He went into an elevator where some gang members were trying to escape. Cyrus cuffs Sam to a pipe and puts on Nemesis's mask as the city was thrown into darkness as Cyrus's blackout bombs exploded. The citizens started looting and chaos ensued during the blackout. Joe came out of the elevator and fought through the gang members on that floor as the fire from the explosion earlier raged on. Farshad is running away from Joe while the henchmen fight Joe in vain. Joe got tired as he was old, so he ran through several walls to reach the last room where Farshad was hiding. Joe beat up the gang members there and killed Farshad with Farshad's own blackout bomb. Joe then walks through the flames to where Cyrus and Sam are. Joe dropped his hammer and walked towards Sam, telling Sam they had to leave. Cyrus sneaks up behind Joe and grabs the hammer. Cyrus beats up Joe and uses the hammer while the heat from the fire and the injuries Joe sustained earlier causes Joe's body to heat up. Cyrus calls Joe, the Nemesis, weak as he never carried out his plan to throw the city into darkness and chaos. Cyrus knocks Joe over a ledge and Joe ends up in the same state his brother Samaritan was in during their final battle before he died. Sam saw that Joe was about to die and muster up whatever strength he had left and broke the pipe he was tied to. Sam hits Cyrus before Cyrus can deliver the finishing blow to Joe. Cyrus turns around and tries to kill Sam, but Joe, who already climbed up the ledge, beat up Cyrus and bent the hammer around him, locking Cyrus's arms. Cyrus screamed for mercy as Joe threw him into the fire below. After that, Joe's body started heating up and his heart was about to explode. Sam saw a water outlet nearby and broke the connections which let out water onto Joe. Joe recovers, but they're both trapped in the burning building. Joe saw a window nearby, so he carried Sam and ran up to the window, breaking the window as jumped to the building on the other street. When they get up from the fall, Sam confronts Joe for being Nemesis and Joe confirms. Sam then told Joe it is not too late to set the record straight and let everyone know Nemesis was not an evil incarnate as everyone thinks. Joe refuses and leaves Sam. Sam got out of the building and was interviewed by some news reporters. When they asked for his name, the conspiracy theorist calls out Sam's name in the crowd and commends Sam that Sam was right. Sam told the news reporter that Samaritan saved him and Samaritan still lives. The crowd started chanting Samaritan's name and Joe was seen in the crowd pleased with Sam for honoring his brother's memories. Joe walks away as the movie ends. Thank you for watching this review with us. Please leave a like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy the video.